Why did I start refereeing? Because I wasn't very good at playing. That's the long and short of it. I got involved in rugby since I was a kid. When you're in Wales, you're involved in rugby. When you grow up, whether you go on to play football or soccer, rugby is still part of everybody's life, really. So I played in school. I played for the first 15 in school. Wasn't very good. I started refereeing just by chance then, just by helping out some school games, refereeing in school, and that's how it started. Never did I have any ambition of becoming a referee or international referee. Just happened by chance, really. Different now these days. A lot of young people start refereeing now because they see it as a career pathway. I want to be an international referee, but I started just by chance and by a hobby, really. But obviously now it's become my job. Consider the best in the world is it depends who you talk to and after what game. Difficult, really, to maintain the standards. I think it's difficult to have, you know, one best referee. There's about 3 or 4 I think, and it's always been that way, you know, where a lot of people's personal choice, maybe you're the best referee, but in all honesty there's 2 or 3 of you which are considered the top 2 or top 3, because, you know, I could referee a game well on Saturday because the game goes well, and then the other referee may not referee as well, or the game doesn't go as well, so he doesn't come out of it as refereed well, although he may have refereed well. So yeah, and there's huge pressure in maintaining that standard. Huge pressure, really, especially when over the last 12-18 months I've been involved in some great games of rugby, some of the best games of rugby that have been in the last 20, 30, 40 years according to some people. And then people automatically think that when you're refereeing a game it's going to be a great game of rugby, but it doesn't work like that. You know, I can't make a good game of rugby. You know, if I don't referee well, I can spoil a good game of rugby, but a good game of rugby is made by the players. You just play your part in it, and you have a part to play. So yeah, there's massive pressure now, because a lot of people say they see your name as a referee and think, oh, this is going to be a great game, and it doesn't quite work like that. I think it's important to invest in rugby clubs in the community, because rugby clubs are such an important part of community. You know, rugby, football in particular, more than rugby because of its global attraction and the people that watch football. You know, even the most ardent rugby supporter or player will support, you know, a Premiership football club or something. So, but rugby and sport has a huge influence on everyday life and society, doesn't it? And that's why, you know, the true values, the core values of rugby, of respect to everybody, you know, society can take a lot from that, and rugby, by setting those values out and being part of the community and having a community club where people can attend, where children can, in particular, young children or young people can participate in a sport in a safe environment, you know, learn the true values of rugby, which hold you in good stead in true values in society as well. Enable you to become a part of a team, to be part of a team member, which is vitally important as well. So rugby has so many values that, you know, that society, it works both ways, but society, you know, can learn a lot from, and rugby can learn from society as well. So it's hugely important, because, you know, it's such a, especially in small communities, it's such an integral and an important part of community, and especially in Wales more than any other country, because the communities, the villages, and all the rugby teams, or most of the rugby teams in Wales would have been built around the coal mines, around the community, the villages of the coal miners. So I think Wales, probably more than any other country in the world, where the community and the rugby are so intertwined together, and you know, and obviously the same in England as well. So yeah, I think it's hugely important. I think hugely important. I don't think we'll ever stamp out homophobic or prejudices in sport completely, and in society. That there'll always be a minority. There always has been for the last thousands and thousands of years, and there'll always be a minority. But those minorities are getting less and less, and we can get them to as a less minority as we possibly can. Then we can win the battle. And I think rugby and Chesham and all these community rugby clubs in particular play a huge part, because, you know, I was the first one to come out in the professional rugby game. And then Gareth Thomas came out about 4 or 5 years after me, and we were the only 2 who were out in the professional era of sport. And I think that you've got to ask the question, why? And I think, you know, that the reason why is because there is still prejudice out there. And you know, it's not my myself and Gareth Thomas have broken down barriers in showing people that you can be yourself in your chosen sport and can get on with it and achieve whatever you want to achieve by being yourself. And rugby allows us and allowed us to do that. But the true people who can make a difference, and I'm not myself, I'm not people like Gareth Thomas, the true people who can make a difference are the people in the club themselves. You know, I was part of the WIU launch of a No Bystanders campaign last week, where, you know, if you have 2 or 3 people in the crowd shouting abuse, whether it's racial abuse or homophobic abuse, or any abuse, that's not acceptable. If you have another 30 or 40 people turning around and telling these few people, hey, you know, that's not acceptable here. You know, if you can't behave here and hold the true values of rugby and respect for all, then there's no place for you in this club or in this ground. And those are the people who can make a difference. The everyday life of the everyday people of everyday life, you know, in clubs like Chesham who can make a difference. Not people like myself, and I think that's hugely important. I think rugby, more than any other sport, you know, relies on respect for each other, respect for the opponents, and we can't lose that value of rugby. And clubs like Chesham have a huge part to play in that. It's very wrong when you've got to think that somebody has to make a choice between being himself, being who he is, or playing the sport that he loves. Nobody should have to make that choice of being, can I be gay and get on in my life, or do I keep it quiet so I can carry on playing or officiating in rugby? That's a choice that nobody should have to make, and I think that's by people sticking together, no bystanders, people standing up and accepting sport is for all. I think is the only way that we can stamp that out. I think next year's World Cup will leave a huge legacy. I think it will, whether it will be as far as quality of the games and the drama of it all, whether it will be, you know, the best, I don't know, but as far as I think as the occasion and the interest, the global interest, the amount of spectators and everything that the World Cup generates, I think it will be the biggest World Cup that's been, because rugby has grown every year. Every World Cup cycle it's grown, and you know, it's been played in the country now where there are more people playing rugby than any other country in the world. So the interest will be huge, it will be massive, and if it leaves the legacy of that rugby still upholds those true values of rugby, where sport is for all, rugby is for all, respect for everyone involved in rugby, and I think if it leaves that legacy and leaves the legacy that, you know, we can get more young people involved in rugby. And you can have clubs like Chesham within the community thriving, then that I think will be the biggest legacy and the best legacy that anybody can wish that any World Cup can leave, I think.
What are your predictions for the World Cup?
Now, if I'm not selected to referee in it, I would gladly give you my predictions, but I think there's any one of, on their day, there is any one of 6 or 7 probably teams who could win that World Cup. And like everything in life, it comes down sometimes to a little bit of luck as well. And you know, everybody will have their favourites, but you know, there's a few teams in there who are quite capable of winning that World Cup. So I think it'll be very interesting. I think that's going to be a tough one, isn't it? Let's go. But there's one thing for sure: either England, Australia, or Wales are not going to make it out. Which one it is, I honestly don't know. It's going to come down to the wire, I think, isn't it? Of on that day, of who can rise to that pressure of winning those games and getting out of that group of death. And it's going to be interesting, very interesting indeed. And of course, as a Welshman, you know, I want Wales to go all the way and go to the final. You know, there'd be no prouder man than me if I was sitting in the stadium in Twickenham in the final watching Wales lift the Webb Ellis Trophy. Whether we can do that, we'll have to wait and see. I don't. Everybody's good enough. But I think we also have to accept that some people are better than the others, and that's the way the world is. And there is nothing wrong with that. But what I think is that everybody has the opportunity to be part of that club, I think. And you know, Chesham is a community club that every young person, if you want to participate in rugby, which is one of the most wonderful team sports in the world, you know, you make friends, not only in Chesham or in the rugby team in Chesham, you make friends in the community, you make friends with other clubs and other communities as well. And those friends are always there. You know, if you're part of a Chesham team that plays in a game of rugby 50 miles away, you know, when you see those people again the following year, it was just like it was yesterday. That camaraderie and friendship of rugby is always there, and it's a great sport. And you know, try it to see. You know, you don't have to be the best at it. You know, as long as you give it your best, you know, and participate in the game of rugby and enjoy yourself. That's the most important thing, I think. More important than anything else is that you enjoy it. And I think if you give rugby a go, I have no doubt whatsoever that you will enjoy it.